Come.
Good morning, sir.
Morning, Shruti. Please take your seat.
Thank you, sir.
So, if you want, you feel more comfortable without the mask, then you can take it off. So, Shruti, your father is an architect.
Yes, sir.
You have no interest in architecture?
Sir, I do like looking at buildings and understanding things, but as a profession,
No. But history also, I think there is a bit of architecture which goes into that.
Yes, sir.
So, tell me this: what is this central vista? The way it's being laid out and planned. What value do you think it will add to Delhi in terms of its architecture and town planning?
Yes, sir. So the Central Vista has been planned as a redesigning of the space around the parliamentary building and the secretariats. The main reason for the replanning is certain spatial problems that the area has in terms of a lack of space, and those buildings were made in a certain time period, sir. And a long time has passed since then, and due to those reasons, that step is being taken. At the same time, there is also an attempt to redesign a place in a new architectural sort of layout, so that can also be a positive step, sir.
So this new architectural layout, what exactly does it kind of represent?
Sir, I'm not very aware about the details and the designing of the space.
Okay, fine. Ajay, tell me one thing. This global gender gap, there is a report which is brought out by some agency. Which agency brings it out?
So the World Economic Forum.
So what is it? Is it an intergovernmental body? Is it?
It is an international body. I'm not aware if it is a intergovernmental body per se or a.
So what do you mean by international body?
So I think it has international countries as well as other organizations as members that may not be necessarily state actors.
But are some governments also members?
Sir, I'm not aware about the compositions.
Okay, so what is you are aware of their latest report and India's ranking in it?
Sir, I don't remember the exact ranking.
Okay, so but it has come down by some 28 positions, isn't it?
Yes.
What does it show?
So, since independence, I believe, sir, the position of women has continuously increased and has become better in certain ways, I do believe, sir. At the same time, certain gaps do exist in the economic, social, as well as educational realm and in political representation, which is shown through the gender gap, sir. And these differences between the position of men and women is something that we do need to work on, and the gender gap index is an indicator of the steps that we need to take forward in this direction, sir.
How do you see that it is an indicator of the steps that we need to take? Can you just tell us how exactly is this arrived at? What is the basis of this indexing?
Sir, in terms of the methodology used in the index, I'm not aware about the specific indicators, but I do think that the very index and the fact that we have gone down 28 steps is a point where we should come in and try to increase representation of women, say in the parliament, from the current 14% to more. The gender gap index also in terms of income is around 27% according to the IMF in terms of wage gap between men and women. So these are certain areas where certain steps definitely can be taken. So the very idea that we have gone down 28 steps should be a clarion call for us to do more.
No, this is a good point which you are making. Of course, one can also wonder that how accurate is this index if in 1 year it falls, a country like India, which is a big country, falls 28 position. It shows certain weakness probably in the index itself, and we see very often that we don't agree with the way the indices are built. But are you aware broadly what are the 4 factors which they take into account?
Sir, I
You
haven't
actually
read-
mentioned a couple of them. It's about access to resources, and I think political empowerment is one, and economic space in economic activity is another. But there are, okay, forget about what they do. If you have to measure, what else would you take into account?
So apart from economic indicators and wage gap, apart from political representation, I think educational status is
Good.
one that needs to be taken into account.
Good.
Social position, although it's hard to quantify that in terms of an index and a numerical number, is certainly one thing that needs to be taken into account, and the presence of women in the public space. So,
Okay.
the visibility of women in the public space.
Now, isn't the political representation in some way capturing this?
Yes, sir. Sir, I do believe.
What
but
about
I
health?
think- Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Thank
Health,
you.
health is
Health is a very, very important part, especially
indicator.
the maternal mortality rate.
So if you have to take health as an indicator, forget about this index. Just tell me, as an administrator, if you have to advise somebody to take health also as an indicator, what way will you suggest that this is the way we can measure health?
Sir,
Think and answer.
So with specific reference to women, sir?
Yeah.
So, starting from the entire lifeline of a woman, so right from the early age, I believe rates of female feticide are one. Secondly, the malnutrition rates among women, girl children and male children. The differences between that can be an indicator. Malnutrition rates are known to be greater among girl children because of the preference that is given to male child over certain things like milk or eggs which come into the household. Thirdly, sir, is the case of anemia, and anemia rates, in fact, according to the NFHS survey, have gone up rather than coming down with respect to women. So anemia is a major case. Maternal mortality rate, although has come down in the NFHS 5 data, but certain states it's very alarming, especially Assam and Uttar Pradesh.
Excellent. I think you have given a very good reply, I should say. Now, this is going to be my last subject or topic that I am going to touch. And you tell me what is happening in Sri Lanka. What is this crisis, and what are its drivers? What led to this crisis?
Yes, sir. So, the Sri Lankan economic crisis is very extreme at this point, and I recently read that even exams are being cancelled because of the lack of paper. So it's a very, very extreme state. The reasons for it have also been therefore gradual and have accumulated over time. Firstly, sir, is its massive debt burden at that point, and that also has been due to a lot of factors. One of them being the extreme debt dependency on countries like China. Secondly, sir, tourism is a major source of income for the Sri Lankan economy, and the COVID pandemic also had a major impact on that source of income. Then thirdly, sir, certain policies that the government has taken have also been faulty on a domestic level, such as the policy decision to have only organic food in the country. So that brought down the productivity and the economy of the country. The forex reserves have also gone down, and it's a very import-dependent country at this point. So these are a variety of reasons why I feel the economic situation.
You made very good points, and So this policy decision to kind of have only organic food in India, also there are quite a lot of people who tend to argue that the use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides and all these things should be completely stopped. They go one step further, and also they say that no GMO should be introduced. Would you be inclined to agree with them, or you don't agree with them, or agree partially with them?
Sir, I do think that chemical fertilizers and excessive use of pesticides in the long run does have a deleterious impact, not only on the health of the people but also the farmers, and also leads to decreasing productivity of the soil in the long run, as can be seen in Punjab recently. So the step towards organic is definitely a positive step, but I do think it should be gradual and rather than being sudden. And other factors should also be taken into account in terms of productivity, and alternative research should also be done on it. So I think it should be a step-by-step decision, and Sikkim has been a very positive example of the first organic state, but small steps in the long run can be a better way to go forward.
Good, excellent, thank you.
Yeah, Shruti, I am quite delighted to learn that you are from the same school as I studied, Sardar Patel School. Huh?
Yes.
How did you find the school?
I had a very positive experience in the school.
Did you learn some Gujarati? Huh?
So I had a lot of Gujarati food. I couldn't learn Gujarati language.
Because during our time, till class 8, Gujarati was compulsory. So we started learning and reading and writing Gujarati. So it was a good culture. But anyway, good. I think it's a very nice upbringing in that school. Now, coming from Hindi, mathematics, social science, and economics background, you suddenly switched over to history in your BA honors. Why so? Why did you stick to the subjects which you had already specialized in the school?
So, in my 11th and 12th, I took humanities as my specialization. So, I did study history in my 11th and 12th. And it was during those years, 11th and 12th specifically, that my interest in history grew due to my teachers and due to my love for the subject, which made me take it forward in my graduations.
I see that in the choice of preferences, you have chosen IAS as number 1 preference. Can I know the reason why IAS? Why not IPS? Why not IFS? There are other services also very good. And you must have seen the recent article by Dr. Subbarao. I don't know whether you have gone across, which says that IAS has failed the nation. It's a much talked about article which has come only last week. It was a headline, which our Governor RBI, the ex-Governor RBI had written, that IAS has failed the nation. What are your views on the IAS?
So firstly, I have not gone through that particular article, but sir, I do think that every institution can have certain procedural problems and certain hurdles that it comes across. But at the same time, there is a reason why it is called the steel frame of our country. And personally, sir, the reason why I wanted to pursue the administrative services specifically as my first choice was there are a variety of reasons. The first being that I always wanted to be part of something where I could directly serve the people in some capacity, sir. Secondly, sir, the diversity that this job offers, and on a personal level, the experience and the vast source of learning that this diversity can lead to into my personal growth was a factor that made me choose the services, sir.
You have been born and brought up in Delhi. Can you tell me what are the problems of a common man in Delhi that you must have also experienced?
Yes, sir. So Delhi is a wonderful city, but it comes with certain problems as well. The first being that is much talked about is the pollution, which has especially increased in the last 5-6 years. Secondly, sir, is the problem of traffic that we sometimes come across, especially at certain choke points. So that is an issue. Thirdly, sir, I would say, although it has gradually improved due to the continuous conversation about it, is the issue of women's safety. So these are three things that I would like to point out.
So what difference as an IAS officer can you make? Suppose you are posted to Delhi and as district collector, how do you propose to go about it to handle these challenges?
Yes, sir. So firstly, with respect to pollution, I think it's not a one-step approach or a one-solution approach. As can be seen in other countries who have successfully tackled pollution as well. It has taken multiple years. It has taken 5 to 6 years and a concerted action plan on all fronts. So certain steps are being taken, such as technological in terms of smog towers. Along with that, especially in the case of Delhi, considering the sources of pollution, which especially are stubble burning. So cooperation with other states is also important. So the recent commission that has been formed, the Air Commission, with involvement from other states is a positive step. Awareness of the people in terms of reducing vehicular pollution and encouraging public transport, which is being done through the electric vehicle policy and increased buses, is a positive step. So I think a step-by-step approach on all fronts can tackle pollution. So secondly, with respect to traffic, there again, there are certain problems. I personally believe that the choke points where traffic happens is also because of delayed construction projects that have missed 7 to 8 deadlines, and the work is still going on slowly. So ramping up those specific construction projects where great traffic bottlenecks are and a lot of traffic is also there and footfall is greater should be specifically targeted. Then this is one specific thing that comes to mind, sir. And with respect to women's safety, certain steps have already been taken by the current government in terms of reducing dark spaces. But I think overall, an environment where women are out in the public spaces more, there is greater transit-oriented development, where women transportation, I think, is the foremost step which must be taken so that women can travel at any hour safely. So the step about women marshals in the buses is a positive step, and more such steps should be taken, including the Delhi Metro. So I think transportation can be a major way in which women's safety can be put at the forefront.
But very, very good. I mean, the only thing is that, there are plethora of studies, documentation on each of these aspects. Several commissions, experts, authors, academicians, they have written about it and studied and analyzed. But all those reports are gathering dust somewhere. And considering that the government in the center is that of BJP, the state in the Delhi, the Union Territory, it is AAP, as you know. Now, how do you actually balance the two as a bureaucrat? That you have certain directions flowing from the government of India, certain directions flowing from the local government. So how do you balance the different ideologies?
Yes, sir. So Delhi is a certain unique example where it is the national capital territory of India, as well as a state in a certain respect in its own regard. So a balance must be struck between both fronts. But at the same time, police, apart from police, land and public order, certain decisions do lie with the state government as well. So I think the spaces for work are clearly defined by the constitution, and following that, sir, would be my utmost priority.
Great. I'll just take you away from the other academic activities and all. Let me just concentrate on the extracurricular activities which interest me is that exploring world cinema you have written. Huh?
Yes.
So this is very heartening, that you are also interested in exploring world cinema. What is this world cinema about? What were you doing in this area?
So, sir, I believe that cinema, apart from the medium in which dialogues are spoken, has also a vocabulary of its own. And if we look at cinema from, say, Iran or Korea or Hong Kong or India, and I feel there is a commonality of topics. The filmmaker's craft itself does not know any languages. So exploring that and looking at the commonality of interest, as well as it being an insight into different cultures, is what especially fascinates me about world cinema.
Have you ever tried to make a movie of your own? Did you ever try your hand at that? Some documentary or something?
So the only time that I was part of such a project was in school, where we were filming a small film about the school. But personally, sir, I have not tried my hand at it.
But now, just looking at what your world cinema interest is, do you think with so much of plethora of channels coming up, private channels in the country, and the freedom of expression is already there, enshrined in the Constitution, is there any need for the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting now in the country? Why should we have a ministry? Because people are free to, air their views and everything. So why should we have a Ministry of Information Broadcasting?
So while it is great that we have a diversity of interests, and this diversity can be seen in the different platforms that have also come up, such as OTT platforms as well. At the same time, sir, I do believe that a certain regulation is needed for the industry as well, in terms of safeguarding certain rights. And the Article 19 of the Constitution itself says that the freedom of expression also has certain, can also be bound by certain restrictions as well, reasonable restrictions, sir. And there are certain problems also associated, especially in terms of regulation of children content, which the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting does regulate. It recently has also brought about, in conjunction with the METI, guidelines for the OTT platforms, sir. So I think those needs still remain, and in fact only increase with the increasing content and the freedom of expression's expansions.
Excellent. Thank you, Shruti.
Thank you, sir.
Shruti, have you heard about this Ram Setu?
Yes.
Is it man-made or it is natural?
So, I haven't read any specific research papers on the Ram Setu per se, but I do think that it is a natural body which some people also assume to be man-made.
So now, just like Panama Canal and Suez Canal, navigation would be easier if we are able to pass through this area, and that was the project initiated by government sometimes back, and that would reduce a lot of navigation time, just like Suez Canal is able to do it when we are coming from Europe to Indian Ocean. So why did it stop?
Sir, I believe certain religious sentiments are associated with that structure. So recognizing that was probably
so
recent.
sentiments are important, or the economic development is important?
Sir, I believe in a country as vast as ours, different opinions and different facets need to be balanced with each other. So while economic development is very, very important for the progress of a nation, at the same time, the possible repercussions of certain steps need to be taken into account, and only after that a wholesome decision needs to be taken in terms of alternatives that can also
So
be
that
proposed.
means, a rational decision can be overruled by an emotional decision or a religious decision or a certain mythological decision, because majority people believe in it or it will hurt the sentiments of people.
No, sir. Sir, in that case, I do believe that should be
So
given
now you're
utmost
changing
merit.
your stand.
Sir, I am not changing my stand, I would say, sir. I believe that all aspects of any decision should be fully explored, and only after that,
So suppose you are supposed to take a decision. What decision would you take? You are the say Home Secretary of India, or you are the Cabinet Secretary, and you are being asked to give an advice. What should you do for the country? I'll make it very simple. Yes and no. So would you go in favor of the rational decision in terms of economy, or whether you go with the sentimental decision that it will hurt the religious sentiments of the majority of people?
Sir, if it has been ascertained that that is the only way.
Different, but I'm giving a binary choice, digital choice, 0 or 1, yes or no. Okay, I'll give you another hypothetical example.
Yes.
You're the collector of a district, and poor, illiterate villagers feel that the lady is a witch.
Yes.
And as per their rituals, they've tied up that lady and want to kill her by stoning, because they think that evil is being got by this lady. A lot of people are dying. Epidemic has come up and things like that. And you're the collector of the district. So, trying to save that lady would involve maybe facing a riot, maybe firing, use of force. So what would you do? You will go by the majority, not hurt their sentiments, or will you go by the rational logic and save that women at the cost of killing 2 people, 2 villagers?
Sir, at that point, the woman's safety would be my concern.
No, you might have to kill 2 women who are trying to kill her. So it is 1 versus 2.
Sir, it is not a matter of a number per se, but as an act of self-defense and in opposition to resistance, if that happens, sir. So that would be very unfortunate, but the woman's safety would be my concern.
Thank you. We talk about, you are a student of history.
Yes, sir.
So we have been speaking about Indus Valley civilization.
Yes, sir.
Would it not be appropriate to call it a Saraswati civilization now in terms of recent excavations and developments? Why should it be called Indus Valley only?
So there is again diverging debate and contesting historians' view on this point. The Indus specifically and the existence of the Saraswati has also been talked about by various historians and archaeologists.
Okay. For that matter, let's say Hakka Ghaggar Hakka Ghaggar civilization.
Yes, sir. So it is also sometimes referred to as the Ghaggar Hakra. Yes.
So I'm not using the word mythological Saraswati river, but Hakka Ghaggar is there. These 2 rivers are there.
Yes, sir. So the Indus Valley civilization is usually used to refer to it because it was one of the first names given to it. But other people do refer to it by other names as well, sir.
Are there more Indus Valley sites which were not in the now so-called Pakistan, now Pakistan, but more are there discovered in India now? Which are those?
Sir, according to me, the Rakhigadi archaeological excavations have recently happened, which have determined it to be a larger site as compared to Mohenjo-daro. Yes. Yes.
So that is why the focus now shifts towards India rather than saying.
Yes.
Okay, what is Brahmanization? Is there a word called Brahmanization? You are a student of sociology also, you have taken admission in sociology.
Yes, sir. So I've recently just taken my admission in sociology, so I'm not very aware about the academic meaning of this term, sir.
Okay, what is a Rosetta Stone?
So sorry, sir, I'm not aware about Rosetta Stone.
Do you believe in Aryan migrant theory, migration theory, or we were indigenous people? Now there is a debate going on that a lot of people say that Max Muller and others were wrong, and we just didn't migrate from anywhere. We were born here. And any scientific DNA evidence to prove or not prove it, counter prove?
Yes, sir. So, the Aryan migration theory has been proved by certain scholars in the past. The contestation is about how that migration happened, and was it in waves or was it in a single form. So, recently there has also been a book by Tony Joseph called Early Indians, which has changed the chronology of that migration. And at the same time, it does say that Aryan migration was there, but at the same time, more than 60 to 65% of the DNA was of the out of Africa variant and DNA class as well. So there is a lot of contestation happening in the scholarly sphere about this. But I do believe that the Aryan migration did happen. The time period and the nature of it can differ.
Neo-nationalism.
Yes.
A lot of people are trying to say that no, we were born in India only, we were Indians and we didn't migrate. And this is the Western theory which is being thrust upon us, Aryan racial supremacy.
Yes, sir. Sir, I believe the rewriting and relooking at history has always been a part of the discipline of history writing. At the same time, I do believe that any such discussion should happen on certain sources and the sources that history as a discipline recognizes. So as long as the backing of sources is there, I do believe discussion is
so
necessary.
Are there attempts to rewrite history nowadays? So,
yes, sir.
You just mentioned about that.
Yes, sir. But I do believe that is an ongoing process and not specific to today's age, sir.
Okay, one last question. You're from Delhi.
Yes, sir.
Must have been to Red Fort.
Yes, sir.
Red Fort has got two gates.
Yes, sir.
One is called Delhi Gate. What is the other gate called?
Sir, I'm not aware of the gate.
Forget about it. You have interest in films.
Yes, sir.
Who made the first film in India? You word in cinema, but Indian cinema also you do. Who made the first film in India?
Sir, I seem to forget right
Which
now.
is the best, highest prize in films in India given to?
Sir, I believe the Dada Saheb Phalke Award.
So he made the first film.
Okay, sir. Yes. Thank you, sir.
Shruti,
Yes, sir.
continuing from the discussion about history being written,
Yes.
why it is important that history should be written again and again on the same topic?
Sir, history, according to me, is based on certain sources as well as a certain viewpoint as to how we look at sources. So, how historiography has evolved over time. We have sometimes had the same sources, but the way of looking at it has changed from Western historiography to later nationalist historiography to Marxist historiography, where the factors change to economy. To later subaltern historiography, where the point of view of looking at history was from the point of view of the marginalized. So the way of looking at history.
In the recent past, have you noticed some shift in the choices of the sources among the historians in the last 2 decades?
Yes, sir. Sir, I do believe there is a shift towards oral histories in the recent time period, sir, and
struggle you're talking about, oral history.
yes, sir, and ancient and religious scriptures and myths,
Are
sir.
they using secondary sources also nowadays more than the primary sources?
Yes, sir, in certain cases we can see.
Can you take an example of some historians who uses more frequently secondary sources?
So, with respect to historians, I can't
Okay,
think
no
of
problem.
some.
Now you tell me, as a student of social science, what is happiness index? And what parameter that you measure?
So the concept of happiness index comes from the idea that merely economic growth is not the indicator of true success of any country. So with respect to its parameters, I'm sorry, sir, I can't recollect.
Okay. No. Have you heard about self-help group?
Yes, sir.
So, how it helped in certain states in bridging the gaps, as you were talking about gender gap, as you were talking about women empowerment, as examples of Indian subcontinent. Can you talk about it?
Yes, sir. So two specific states where self-help groups have brought about a rapid change and a transformative change in the lives of women specifically is Kerala and Odisha. In Kerala, it is with respect to the Kudumbashree movement and the Kudumbashree group, which brought together a lot of self-help groups, women self-help groups, which not only empowered the women, and many of these self-help group members later went on to become panchayat heads, and so their role in local decision making also increased over time. Their involvement in various implementation of government schemes also increased. Their income also increased in the long run, as well as their social status. In Odisha, yes.
You wrote you have hobbies related to prose and poetry. So do you write or do you read?
So I mainly read, sir, but I sometimes write.
Which kind of prose you read? Fiction, non-fiction?
Sir, I like to read anything I like, sir. So it involves both.
Favorite prose, any book which you have recently read?
Sir, two books that I recently read were Rag Darbari by Shrilal Shukl and Crime and Punishment by
Rag Darbari
Dostoevsky.
in Hindi.
Yes.
So why it is critically acclaimed book for decades now?
Yes, sir.
As a student of social science, you must have noticed. What is so special about it?
So it was written in the mid 20th century. Still, it continues to be one of the best examples and best forms of writing political satire, sir. So in that context, it is quite famous, sir.
Okay. My last question. You have written Exploring World Cinema, and
Yes.
I have also asked question in that. In the recent past, certain movies like Korean movies and teleserials have become very popular. The country is very small, right, compared to China.
Yes, sir.
So, what is the reason why it is becoming so popular even in the Western countries, in India, and across the Southeast Asian countries?
Yes, sir. So it is quite interesting that Korean dramas are very popular not only in major cities but also in tier 2, tier 3 cities where the mobile has become a place where people watch these films and dramas. There are a number of reasons can be put forward for it. The phenomenon of TikTok, according to me, was the entry point into Korean short clips, which brought that into attention of the Indian audience as well as other audiences. Secondly is the quality of Korean cinema and the similarities in Korean cinema in terms of its themes with other countries in South Asia specifically, sir. So the movie Parasite, as well as the Squid Games, which was recently brought about, talks of economic dislocation and the change and the wide gap between the elites and the lower sections of society. So these are problems which persist in South Asia across countries. So the themes were quite similar, sir.
Very much correlated with the themes
Yes, sir.
of some other developing
Countries, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So Sakshi,
Shruti.
sorry.
Shruti Sharma.
Shruti, Shruti, how would you rate your performance?
So it was okay, I'm assuming, sir.
Okay,
Yes.
you are being very modest. I would say that this was an excellent performance.
Thank you, sir.
You were pleasant. confident and self-assured. And very often this leads to sometimes in some candidates, some degree of arrogance that was completely absent. So, in addition to that, I think you exhibited very good analytical ability all through. Even towards the latter part of the interview, for example, one question was posed about the Korean movies. I think the fact that you brought the technology in is really the technology that made it possible for people to view, these kind of movies and then also looked at the social aspect. It showed that even at that time you were alert and you were applying your mind to every question, and you showed that ability all through. So this is really very good. You showed a lot of balance and maturity in handling questions which were, ticklish, and there were deliberate attempts from the honorable member to see whether you can be forced to take a particular side. You stuck to your gun, but you did it very pleasantly. So you should, I think, maintain this. You had a lot of maturity in approach. You also showed a lot of humane angle in whatever you said. I think on one of the problems about saving that woman who was being kind of targeted as a witch. And you showed a lot of resilience in the sense that when you did not know the answer, you came back, you did not allow that to hamper your performance in the future.
Thank you, sir.
So I think these are all very good qualities, and I don't want to hamper your style by saying do this or do that. You are absolute. When is your interview?
So it's on 8th of April, sir.
On 8th of April. You are absolutely primed for the interview.
Thank you,
You
sir.
can just go. But just one thing is,
Yes, sir.
you are not looking too fresh for whatever reason.
Okay.
Your
Yes, sir.
hairstyle.
Yes, sir.
Maybe just give a little bit. That's not a very, very important
Yes,
point.
sir.
But because the fresh you look, the fresh you feel, and
Yes.
that impacts. But you are doing perfectly fine. You're really a very, very good candidate, and I'm sure you'll make it to successful to IAS itself.
Thank
Your
you,
first
sir.
preference is
Yes, sir.
IAS.
Thanks. I think endorsing the views expressed by the chairman, I feel that Shruti, your innocence coupled with confidence is your biggest asset. That's what I really liked in you. You're very positive. Your depth of knowledge is exceedingly good. I mean, at this age, if you can talk about the variety of issues that we raised, whether on governance or on history or other subjects, I think you answered perfectly in that respect. You remain very poised. You are very confident. These are all your assets. So I didn't find anything negative point in you. So I feel you are the perfect material for IAS. And I sincerely hope that you get it.
Thank you,
So
sir.
wish you all the best. Good luck.
Thank you, sir.
Shruti, I would agree with serious.
Thank you, sir.
There is nothing negative I could find in you. In fact, my attempt to deviate you towards mythology and towards emotions, you very cleverly steered away and came to the right conclusion, which an administrator or a director or a bureaucrat is supposed to take. About the movie Parasite, that was a very good example you mentioned. It's more about human emotions that we empathize with them. Similar situation. The entire movie is, so you can feel that it's happening in my house or it's happening in India.
Yes, sir.
The other important factor was the OTT platform, which made it easier for us to see those movies. Otherwise, we would have to go to a film festival or wait for the movie to come to Indian theaters or something like that. So that factor was important. TikTok is important, but I think the first enabler was OTT, and the second is what you already mentioned. Rest all is okay. Rosetta Stone is the one which we were able to decipher the Egyptian script. So we haven't been able to find a Rosetta Stone for the Indus Valley civilization, so we have not been able to decipher that. So as a student of history, that was important to know. Rest, I think all the positive qualities.
Thank you,
And
sir.
you didn't take a guess anywhere. You didn't fumble. You taking your time to answer very pleasantly. I think so far I have come across the first candidate which is I can't find faults with.
Thank you,
You
sir.
have disappointed us.
Thank you,
Best
sir.
of luck.
Thank you, sir.
Shruti, I fully agree with all honorable members. But at one point I noticed when you were interacting with honorable sir on mythology versus rationalities,
Yes.
your confidence was slightly low compared to your own confidence as you had across the interview. Maybe you were in dilemma. Maybe you didn't want to tell what you believe, even when the options were given yes or no, rational versus emotions, right? And then on which hunting, then you were more
Yes,
clear
sir.
about than what. So, and again, a similar question about Brahmanization. You perhaps avoided, or you really didn't know?
Sir, I didn't know the exact sociological definition of it.
So what I noticed that perhaps you had in your mind that if there is some controversial question, some very opinionated question, I should duck. I mean, that is what I noticed. But that is not important for me. What is important, during that conversation, your pitch of voice, your confidence level was not same
Okay, sir.
as it was across.
Okay, sir.
So that is the only thing which I noticed. Otherwise, it was an excellent, as already you have been told, calm and composed, confident, analytical, and varieties of topics we have explored within that limited hours. And yes, just one suggestion: since you come from Delhi, your father is an architecture,
Yes,
and
sir.
Delhi is a city famous for its historical buildings.
Yes.
And including the question which honorable member asked, Delhi Gate, the other is Lahori Gate.
Yes.
I actually come across. So all heritage
And why
sites.
it is called Lahori Gate and why Delhi Gate?
Yeah, that is also. So all the World Heritage Site, all the protected sites, at least just have a glance.
Okay, sir.
Because that is very
History is also your
possible.
subject.
And history
Yes,
is a
sir.
subject.
Subject.
So that is why sir also started from that point.
Yes, sir, yes.
Otherwise, you have everything in favor, and if you get less than 70%, we will be disappointed.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
So so how better can I answer that question? Because I was in a bit of fix when you were asking yes, no, and
See, when emotions and mythology is there, like for example, Ram Setu, it's of economic interest. So if majority of the people believe in mythology and that's why they don't want economic development, forget about the decision of the government of India, forget about but your rational thinking should share that it's a emotional issue, but economic conditions should prevail. So therefore, there is no harm in navigating through it. It's in the beginning you said it's not a man-made structure. It's a natural structure. So if we are able to dig through the Suez Canal and Panama Canal, why not through this? If it's safe, and it's only a small part of it that is being wanted, not the entire Adams Bridge.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So because if we keep on taking decisions based on sentiments, then we won't progress.
Yes, sir.
But all the best.
Thank you, sir.
All the best, Shruti.